In December 2024, the President-elect of the United States floated the idea of buying Greenland. Again, not as a joke, not as a distraction, as actual policy. The island has 57,000 people. Most of America's mid-sized airports serve more passengers in a week. Greenland's entire GDP is about $3 billion. That's less than the annual revenue of Crocs, the shoe company. And yet, somehow, this frozen rock has become the center of a geopolitical bidding war that involves rare earth minerals, military bases, and the kind of territorial ambition we thought died with top hats and mustache wax. Here's what nobody's saying out loud. The push for Greenland isn't about Greenland. It's about what happens when 19th century logic collides with a 21st century economy that's already moved on. Let's rewind. Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. It's the world's largest island that isn't a continent. 80% of it is covered by an ice sheet that's 2 miles thick in some places. The population is smaller than a sold-out football stadium. There are no roads connecting the towns. You fly or you boat. That's it. The United States tried to buy Greenland once before. In 1946, Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million in gold. Denmark said no. The U.S. kept a military presence there anyway. Thule Air Base up in the northwest has been operational since the Cold War. It's one of the most strategically important early warning radar stations on the planet. The base is already American. The land is not. Fast forward to 2019. Trump offers to buy Greenland. Denmark's prime minister calls the idea absurd. Trump cancels a state visit. The story becomes a meme and then fades. But it didn't fade in the intelligence community. It didn't fade in the mining industry. And it didn't fade among the people actually trying to control the next century's supply chains. Because Greenland sits on something more valuable than oil: rare earth elements. Here's the uncomfortable truth about the modern economy. It runs on materials most people have never heard of: neodymium, dysprosium, praseodymium. These aren't luxury goods. They're the foundation of everything that makes the digital world work. Electric car motors, wind turbines, smartphones, military drones, satellites, fiber optic cables. You can't have a green economy without them. You can't have a defense system without them. And right now, one country controls about 70% of global production: China. Greenland has rare earth deposits that could rival China's. The island also has uranium, zinc, lead, and potentially one of the largest undeveloped iron ore reserves in the world. In 2013, the European Union labeled Greenland a strategic partner for resource security. That's diplomat speak for, we need this and we're worried. So when Trump floated buying Greenland, he wasn't being random. He was articulating, in his own way, a strategy that's been simmering in Washington and Brussels for years. Secure the resources, cut dependency on Beijing, lock down Arctic access before it's too late. But here's the thing. None of that requires owning Greenland. Let's talk about the math. What would it actually cost to buy Greenland? No one knows because it's not for sale. But let's play the game. In 1946, the U.S. offered $100 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.5 billion today. Some estimates put Greenland's theoretical market value closer to $1.7 trillion when you factor in resources, strategic location, and future Arctic shipping routes. Even if Denmark wanted to sell, which it doesn't, and even if Greenlanders wanted to be purchased, which they definitely don't, the upfront cost would be staggering. Then comes the infrastructure. Greenland has virtually none. No ports capable of handling heavy cargo at scale, no rail, no highway system. The island doesn't even have enough housing for its current population, let alone a workforce imported to extract resources. Building the infrastructure to make Greenland economically viable would cost hundreds of billions. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers estimated in the 1950s that basic road construction in Greenland would cost 50 times more per mile than in the continental U.S. permafrost. extreme cold, constant darkness half the year. It's not just expensive, it's geologically hostile. And here's the kicker. You don't need to own land to extract resources from it anymore. You just need contracts. China figured this out decades ago. They didn't buy African countries. They didn't annex South American nations. They wrote checks. They built infrastructure. They signed long-term deals with governments desperate for cash. And now, Chinese companies operate mines on every continent except Antarctica, where mining is banned. In Greenland, Chinese firms were already positioning themselves before Western governments started panicking. In 2016, a Chinese company attempted to buy an old naval base. Denmark blocked it. In 2018, China offered to help fund new airports in Greenland. The US pressured Denmark to counter the offer, and Denmark did. The game isn't about flags anymore. It's about contracts, leverage, and who gets there first with a pen. So why is the US still talking about buying the land? Because the rhetoric of ownership feels strong. It plays well politically. It signals dominance in a way that signing a mining agreement does not. But it's a fantasy that ignores how modern economies actually work. Rare earths aren't like oil. You can't just drill and pump. Refining rare earth minerals is chemically complex, environmentally destructive, and expensive. China dominates not because it has all the deposits, but because it built the refineries and accepted the environmental cost. The US has rare earth mines. Mountain Pass in California produced rare earths for decades, but we shipped the ore to China for processing because it was cheaper, and we didn't want the toxic waste. Owning Greenland doesn't solve that problem. It just moves the rocks to American soil. You'd still need to build the refining capacity. You'd still need to deal with the waste. You'd still be decades behind China in processing expertise. And you'd still need Greenlanders to agree to let you tear up their land. Here's where it gets deeply ironic. Greenland has been moving toward independence from Denmark for years. The island has its own parliament, its own language, its own flag. Independence is popular. But independence requires money. And right now, Greenland receives about $600 million a year in subsidies from Denmark. That's roughly a third of the economy. To break free, Greenland needs revenue. Mining could provide that. But large-scale extraction comes with risks, environmental damage, cultural disruption, loss of fishing grounds, which currently sustain much of the local economy. And there's the uncomfortable colonial echo. Rich foreign powers arriving to dig up resources and leave tailings behind. Greenlanders are not naive. They've watched what happened in other resource-rich regions. They know the pattern. The consultants arrive, the promises are made, the contracts get signed, then the profits leave, the pollution stays, and the locals are left holding the bill. So even if the US could buy Greenland, even if Denmark agreed, even if the price made sense, the people who actually live there might just say no. Let's zoom out. The Greenland conversation is a symptom of a bigger anxiety. The digital economy promised dematerialization. We were supposed to move beyond physical stuff. Everything would be cloud-based, frictionless, weightless. Except it's not. Every data center requires copper. Every server requires rare earths. Every smartphone requires cobalt. The digital economy is built on mountains of rocks dug out of the ground, often in countries with weak labor laws and weaker environmental protections. And now, we're running into the hard limits. There aren't infinite deposits. There aren't infinite places to mine. And the countries that control the materials control the future. That's what makes Greenland so symbolic. It represents the last blank space on the map, the final frontier where a major power could theoretically plant a flag and claim victory. But the map isn't blank anymore. It never really was. People live there. They have their own ideas about the future, and the idea that you can just buy sovereignty in 2025, the way you might have in 1867 when the US bought Alaska, feels like a delusion. Here's the uncomfortable question no one wants to answer. If Greenland isn't for sale, and China's already locked down supply chains across the developing world, What exactly is the plan? You could invest in domestic refining. You could stockpile materials. You could diversify supply chains. You could fund recycling technology that recovers rare earths from old electronics. All of that is possible. All of that is boring. None of it makes headlines. Talking about buying Greenland makes headlines. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the actual policy doesn't matter as much as the signal. The message to allies, to rivals, to markets. We're willing to think big. We're not constrained by norms. We're still the kind of country that can look at an island and say, we'll take it. Except we can't. Not really. Not in a world where sovereignty, however inconvenient, still means something. There's a reason this idea keeps coming back. It's not because it makes economic sense, it's because it makes emotional sense. There's something seductive about the simplicity. Draw a line, sign a check, problem solved. But the problems we face now don't have borders you can buy your way across. They're systemic. They're about supply chains that span continents, dependencies that run through countries we'll never control, and resources that are finite no matter who owns the land. Greenland isn't the solution. It's a mirror. And what we see reflected back is the gap between the world we want, where power is simple and ownership is clean, and the world we have, where everything is entangled and nothing is for sale. So the next time someone floats buying Greenland, ask yourself, are we solving a problem, or are we just trying to feel like we still can?